everything costs more. Work doesn't pay. You make it, Trudeau takes it. Housing costs have doubled, with the worst housing inflation by far in the G7. The worst housing inflation in Canadian history. Incomes have fallen 40% short of housing costs increases. Rent has doubled. Mortgage payments have doubled. The needed down payment has doubled. Here in Montreal, rent has actually tripled. When I was housing minister 9 years ago, you know how much it cost to rent a one-bedroom here? $700. Now it's $2,200. In just 9 years. The people of Montreal have given Justin Trudeau their trust. What did he give them in return? He tripled their rent. He sent people to the food bank. 25% of Canadians are now living in poverty. A quarter of kids are going to school hungry, according to the federal government's own data. We have the worst economy in the G7 by far. It has shrunk more since 2019 than any other G7 country. In fact, our per capita GDP is now smaller than it was before COVID. We are one of the only countries in the world that has that distinction. Our money is leaving. $500 billion of our investment has left to the United States to escape Trudeau's taxes and red tape. Meanwhile, we have the second slowest building permits in the OECD, which is driving up home building costs. What does Trudeau do about that? He gives more and more of our money to incompetent, radical NDP Liberal mayors who block home building and drive up homelessness. Everywhere we go in Canada, it's the same story. 35 homeless encampments in Halifax, 256 homeless encampments in Toronto. 50 of them have opened in 3 months alone. Some people are even calling these homeless encampments Trudeau towns to reflect the fact that we never had these places before him. And here at this beautiful school, we're seeing children terrorized by drugs, by potential violence, by gross sex acts, by needles and other danger. What we're seeing here is a radical, wacko liberalization experiment of drug legalization that has driven up overdose deaths and crime and now threatens once safe neighborhoods. Despite the failed experiment that's destroying lives, Trudeau is doubling down by allowing the Benoit Labre drug injection site in Montreal, located just steps away from this elementary school and this park, which is supposed to be safe for children. Parents have raised the alarm bell about this disaster, saying their children are afraid to go to school. Some kids have even witnessed indecent acts on the sidewalk and have been shouted at. Residents warn of an influx of drug dealers who've been drawn into the area since the site opened. Montrealers no longer recognize the once safe communities that they used to live in. Now they see homelessness, crime, chaos, drug abuse, which have become common. Montreal's NDP Liberal mayor has even insisted Montrealers should just learn to live with this chaos and this danger. She says we should just accept homelessness, and the Trudeau government refuses to directly reject the city of Montreal's radical request to legalize hard drugs in this city, even after the experiment led to a 400% increase in overdose deaths in BC where it was tried. And just this week, the London Telegraph, a famous international publication, called Vancouver the world's capital of fentanyl overdoses. The whole world is looking in disbelief on the wacko liberalization of drugs that is destroying lives under Justin Trudeau after 9 years. And so I am here today to stand up for this community because none of the Liberal MPs in the area are willing to do it. Mark Miller is supposed to be the MP here. What is he doing? He's nowhere. He's doing nothing. Just like Anthony Housefather is nowhere and doing nothing to protect the Jewish people against the rampant anti-Semitism that has unleashed on the streets of Montreal and across Canada, and Housefather is protecting this recent radical that they appointed to head up the Human Rights Tribunal. His house father votes to give money to UNRWA terrorists, and he stands by Trudeau, who's the most anti-Israel prime minister in Canadian history. The Montreal Liberal MPs do nothing for their community, so I am here to fight for Montrealers in this wonderful city. And I'm today calling for the Trudeau government to close its drug den. Under Section 56.1 of the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, the government has the power to accept or refuse a supervised consumption site like Maison Benoit Labre. Justin Trudeau must immediately shut down this hard drug injection site, this drug den, to protect our children, reassure families, and ensure the safety of all Quebecers and Canadians. It's time for a common sense Conservative government that will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Let's bring it home.
OK, on va maintenant passer aux questions. Alors, on va aller avec la première question.
Bonjour, Violette Quentin pour Radio-Canada CBC. Si c'est possible de répondre en français, d'abord en anglais, ensuite ce sera apprécié. Dans les derniers mois à Montréal, on a beaucoup entendu parler du terme cohabitation par rapport aux ressources d'hébergement d'urgence, aux centres d'inhalation supervisée, la cohabitation entre les usagers de ces ressources, les citoyens, les autorités. Vous, quelle est votre conception de cette cohabitation? Et puisque vous vous opposez au projet de centre d'inhalation supervisé ici, quelle solution proposez-vous pour les personnes toxicomanes qui ont besoin de ressources?
L'alternative que nous proposons, c'est le traitement pour mettre fin à leur dépendance sur la drogue. La seule solution, c'est de ne plus utiliser les drogues dures. Les politiciens blocs libéral radicaux, les politiciens blocs libéraux radicaux veulent continuer la dépendance sur les drogues dures. Ils ont créé une industrie des bureaucrates, des lobbyistes, des activistes qui profitent du misère des gens qui ont une dépendance et qui veulent le perpétuer. Ils inventent des nouvelles terminologies. Maintenant, c'est cohabitation, que les enfants doivent cohabiter avec les gens qui utilisent l'héroïne, fentanyl, qui font des actes de sexe dans les parcs. C'est ridicule, c'est l'enfer que créent ces radicaux, ces politiciens, bloc libéral comme Plante et Trudeau. Il nous faut un changement, il nous faut du gros bon sens, c'est-à-dire mettre des criminels en prison, bannir les drogues dures, donner un vrai traitement aux gens pour mettre fin à leur dépendance. C'est ça le gros bon sens et c'est ce que nous allons faire. So the question was about creating a cohabitation. This is the latest Orwellian terminology that the radical, wacko, bloc liberal politicians like Plante and Trudeau are inventing. And what they mean by that is that kids should have to cohabitate with people who are using crack, heroin, cocaine, and other hard drugs in their play parks like this. This is total wacko. Kids should not have to cohabitate with hard drug use and crime. That's not Canada. What it is leading to is more danger and more violence. And by the way, there's an entire industry of bureaucracies and activists and politicians who are profiting from this misery and want to perpetuate it. And they are pumping more and more money into keeping it going. I will end it. My common sense plan will ban the hard drugs. It will put the money into treatment rather than into handing out narcotics. We will break the dependence on drugs, and we will bring our loved ones home drug-free. And let me just close off by quoting a local resident who describes what it's like to have this so-called cohabitation that the wacko radical mayor and prime minister are pushing. This is from Michael McKenzie, Canadian Research Chair in Child Wellbeing and Professor of Social Work and Pediatrics at the University of McGill. Before the center opened, community resistance was narrowly focused on the drug injection site. The discussion, sadly now, extends to the entire facility, risking to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is no evidence in the literature I have read that commingling transitional housing with a supervised injection inhalation site is a prudent move in supporting recovery of those newly housed. I make no apologies because that I don't want my children seeing sex acts on the way home from school. I feel no shame in saying it is unacceptable to have people publicly masturbating or assaulting neighbors. Communities, much like the families who comprise them, can be both compassionate and set firm boundaries about unacceptable public behavior that harms people and traumatizes children. It is compassionate to demand more from politicians and the Benoit Labre Center. That's Michael McKenzie, Canada Research Chair in Child Wellbeing and Professor of Social Work and Pediatrics at the University of McGill. That sounds like common sense to me.
On va passer à la prochaine question.
Hello, Joe Bongiorno, Canadian Press. If you can answer in English and French as well. So, on the subject of NATO, why won't you commit to meeting the NATO target instead of saying you would work toward meeting the spending commitment? The difference being saying you're going to do something versus working toward or trying to do something.
I always say what I mean and mean what I say. I make promises that I can keep. And right now we are, our country is broke after 9 years of Trudeau, who's doubled our national debt, ballooned our bureaucracy, caused the worst inflation in 40 years, driven 25% of our population into poverty and 25% of our children into hunger. So as you can imagine, I'm inheriting a dumpster fire when it comes to the budget. So every time I make a financial commitment, I'm going to make sure I've pulled out my calculator and done all the math. Because people are sick and tired of politicians just announcing that they're going to spend money without figuring out how they're going to pay for it. Obviously, Trudeau has demolished our military, and my common sense approach is I will cut foreign aid to dictators, terrorists, and multinational bureaucracies. I will crack down on corruption, back office bureaucracy, and procurement bungles, and I will use the savings from that to reinforce our military. We will buy equipment based on best value to make our money go further, as we did during the previous Conservative government, which re-equipped our forces rapidly, on time, and on budget to fight in Afghanistan. And I will replace the woke culture with a warrior culture so that we can get recruitment back up and running. We can recruit the next generation of soldiers, sailors, and airmen. Thank you.
En français aussi, s'il vous plaît.
Je vais hériter un désastre financier. Après 9 ans, Justin Trudeau a doublé la dette nationale, doublé le coût de logement, causé la pire inflation depuis 40 ans, forcé 25% des Canadiens de vivre en pauvreté. Moi, je vais devoir regarder le budget avant de faire des promesses. Je vais devoir faire des vrais calculs parce que les Canadiens sont tannés des politiciens qui font des promesses sans savoir comment ils vont payer la facture. Ce que j'ai dit par rapport aux militaires, c'est que oui, Justin Trudeau a détruit notre militaire parce que le très petit budget qu'il a fourni, il le gaspille sur la malgérance des achats des équipements, sur des projets woke qui n'ont rien à voir avec les militaires, et sur la bureaucratie qu'il a gonflée. Moi, je vais couper l'aide à l'étranger qui va aux dictateurs, aux terroristes et aux bureaucraties multinationales. Je vais mettre fin à la corruption et la malgérance de nos achats. Et je vais couper dans la bureaucratie tout pour trouver les économies qu'on peut mettre sur le premier lien de notre militaire. On va rebâtir le militaire, on va éliminer le gaspillage pour supporter nos soldats et de leur fournir le meilleur équipement. Merci beaucoup.
On passe à la prochaine question.
Eric Andrew, Globe and Mail. Your party hasn't actually said what your policy towards safe injection sites will be. So you want to close this one, but will you close others? What will you do around safe injection sites across the country?
I will be closing them. We will close safe injection sites next to schools, playgrounds, anywhere else that they endanger the public and take lives. We will defund. By the way, they're not safe injection sites. I'm sorry. I used your dishonest language. See, you just repeat the language that is fed to you by the government. Are you a CP? Are you a CP?
CP?
Who are you with?
Globe and Mail.
You're with the Globe and Mail. You guys repeat the same language you get from the radical liberal NDP activists and bureaucracies. You call them safe. How can they be safe? You think it's safe when a bullet comes flying out of one of these sites to kill a mother in Toronto? Do you think that's safe? You think it's safe to have people using crack and heroin and cocaine next to a playground like this? You think that's safe? It's not safe.
Supervised injection sites.
They're drug dens. They're drug dens. And they've made everything worse. Everywhere they've been done, they've made everything worse. And I know what you'll do now. You'll now go and call the same bureaucrats who caused the chaos, and you'll call them experts. The people who caused the 400% increase in drug overdose deaths in Vancouver, you're going to call them experts. They are expert at destroying communities and ending lives, but at perpetuating their own industries, because that's what they are. They are industries that want to expand, and the only way they can continue to exist is by keeping the misery going. So they're not safe. They are unsafe injection sites. They are drug dens, and we oppose them. The Supreme Court has been very clear that these radical bureaucrats don't have the right to open these drug dens anywhere they want. The court made it clear that there are reasonable restrictions that can be placed on them, and that includes playgrounds. So I've told you my policy. I'm against the drug dens next to children's playgrounds, schools, other places where people who are vulnerable in the community live. We will defund them. There will not be a single taxpayer dollar from the Poilievre government going to drug dens. Every single penny will go to treatment and recovery services to bring our loved ones home drug-free. Thank you.
OK, merci.
Nice try. Nice try. The Supreme Court didn't say that. See, I know what you're trying to do. The Supreme Court didn't. No, I'm giving you my answer. The Supreme Court did not say that there can be. It's okay. The Supreme Court didn't say that you can have a drug den wherever you want. It said that there are reasonable restrictions that can be placed to stop them from opening up in locations that endanger the community or where there is community opposition. That's what the Supreme Court actually said. Now, I know that wacko politicians and the Liberals and the NDP and their supporters in the media want to make it sound like there is a constitutional obligation that we allow these drug dens anywhere they want to go up. That is not true. That is the opposite of true. We have the power under Section 56.1 of the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act to reject these drug dens and shut them down where they endanger the public, and that's what I will do.
Pouvez-vous répondre en français aussi, s'il vous plaît?
Premièrement, ils ne sont pas sécuritaires. C'est de donner les drogues aux gens, surtout à côté des écoles primaires, ce n'est pas sécuritaire, c'est dangereux. Il faut arrêter de répéter la rhétorique des politiciens extrêmes et radicaux comme Justin Trudeau et Valérie Plante. La Cour suprême a montré que ce n'est pas le droit de n'importe quel organisme d'ouvrir ces centres de drogue n'importe où. il peut y avoir des restrictions, surtout dans des lieux où des enfants, ou la communauté, ou d'autres personnes sont vulnérables. Donc, moi, je vais fermer tous des centres de drogue dure là où ça menace la sécurité des gens. Je vais arrêter de financer ces centres. Ils vont plus recevoir un sou du gouvernement fédéral et je vais investir dans le traitement pour les gens qui ont une dépendance, pour leur donner l'espoir de vivre sans drogue. Merci.
On va maintenant passer à la dernière question.
Sorry. Mike Armstrong, Global News. Just to go back to NATO for a moment, I'm wondering about your reaction to the fairly open criticism Canada came under this week and whether you would feel pressure to meet that 2% target.
First of all, it's clear now Justin Trudeau is seen as an absolute joke on the world stage. He was I was embarrassed to see our Prime Minister treated like a human piñata by the rest of the NATO countries. They look upon him with total and complete ridicule. Canadians are tired of being embarrassed by a Prime Minister who prances around and preens, lectures the world without doing his part. Common sense conservatives will cut back on foreign aid to dictators, terrorists, and multinational bureaucracies. We will cut off back office bureaucracy in the Defense Department. We will end the botched procurement that has led to billions of dollars of waste. And we will put all of that money into rebuilding our forces and supporting the front lines of our soldiers, sailors, and airmen. I would add that when the previous Conservative government was in office, we weren't hearing these criticisms. Why? Because we were delivering. It wasn't because we were spending more. It's because we were delivering more. We were able to buy equipment off the shelf, quickly put it into theater, and pound for pound, do more to fight the Taliban in the most dangerous part of the world than almost any other country in NATO. And so the Americans and our other allies were very grateful that we were doing more than our part, regardless of what it financially cost the budget. Now, because Trudeau has wasted so much of the money we do spend, and even the money we are putting to work is being wasted, and we're not getting the results, and therefore our standing on the world is in decline. The other thing he's failed to do, that I will reverse, is use our resources as a geostrategic force. The Japanese, the Greeks, the Germans have all asked for our natural gas so they can break their dependence on Putin. Trudeau says there's no business case. The Americans have built 7 natural gas liquefaction facilities since Trudeau took office. The Qataris have doubled their production. The Germans built an import terminal in 150 days from concept to completion. Obviously, there's a business case. I will be exporting Canada's natural resources, particularly to break European dependence on Putin and turn dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people.
En français aussi, s'il vous plaît.
Justin Trudeau est vu comme une clown sur la scène mondiale. Il n'a aucun respect parmi les chefs mondiaux. C'était embarrassant de voir tous les autres chefs d'État ridicules notre premier ministre canadien. Les Canadiens sont tannés d'être embarrassés par leur premier ministre, qui va partout prononçant des grands discours et la rhétorique woke pour impressionner ses amis à Hollywood, lorsque les vrais chefs mondiaux rient à son égard. Il a gaspillé tellement d'argent. L'argent qu'il dépense est souvent gaspillé par la corruption et la malgérance dans l'achat d'équipements. Il a gonflé la bureaucratie, il gaspille l'argent pour l'aide à l'étranger. Moi, ma solution, c'est de couper l'aide à l'étranger pour les terroristes, des dictateurs, des bureaucraties mondiales et le mettre dans notre militaire. on va recevoir plus de valeur pour l'argent que nous dépensons pour l'équipement et pour les approvisionnements pour nos soldats. Et finalement, nous allons utiliser nos ressources comme étant une force stratégique dans le monde. Nous avons le 5e plus grand montant de gaz naturel qu'on peut vendre au monde afin de briser la dépendance européenne sur la Russie et ramener cet argent ici au Canada. Justin Trudeau veut que l'argent pour le gaz naturel va pour acheter des armes de guerre de Poutine. Moi, je veux que cet argent-là revienne au Canada pour le soudeur canadien et pour les chèques de paix canadiens. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Ça conclut la conférence de presse.
Merci.